They counted 43 enemy bodies in the rubble. Smoke curled into the cold night air. Bullet casings glinted like lost time in the sand. And standing alone in the chaos was a woman they said was too old to fight. Colonel Elena Vasquez wasn't listed on the mission log. She wasn't cleared for combat. Her boots had no GPS tracker. And yet, she stood there, breathing heavy, rifle empty, eyes locked forward. A soldier walked up to her slowly, stunned. "You're not even supposed to be here," he whispered. Elena didn't answer. She simply turned her head toward the horizon, toward the sunrise, and closed her eyes. Just 12 hours earlier, she had been in a meeting room 500 kilometers south, surrounded by polished brass, coffee cups, and clipped sentences. "Colonel Vasquez," one of them had said, "it's time we talk about your transition plan." Elena looked at the papers on the table. A polite exit, a training roll, a quiet goodbye. 30 years in the field, and they were giving her a laminated binder. "You're not the same operator you were in Fallujah," they told her. She didn't argue. She simply stood up, tucked the binder under her arm, and left without saying a word, because 5 minutes later, she received a text that shattered the part of her still pretending to follow the rules. "Contact lost. Bravo 7. Last seen Euphrates sector. Your daughter may be among them." The words hit harder than any explosion ever could. Her daughter, Captain Maria Vasquez, was leading a recon unit in the most volatile corridor of Syria. And now comms had gone dark. Intel said it might be a jam, or an ambush, or worse, command said they'd investigate. Elena didn't wait. She walked straight to the old supply depot behind the barracks. It was nearly forgotten, used mostly for storage now. But Elena remembered the code on the lock. She'd trained here once, back when women in combat roles had to fight for more than just their lives. When proving yourself meant bleeding twice as hard, inside dust-coated crates of unused gear. She moved like a ghost through the rows, stopping at a long metal case. She opened it, her old custom-built M4 still wrapped in cloth. A combat vest, faded but intact. 3 loaded mags. Her tags. She geared up without hesitation. No one stopped her. No one saw her. No one expected her to move like that anymore. She climbed into the back of a refueling convoy headed north. No manifest, no orders. Just instinct. As the sun set over the Syrian hills, the sky turned the color of rusted metals. She checked her rifle one more time, then closed her eyes and let the hum of the engine lull her thoughts. Not of war, but of Maria. She remembered the first time Maria picked up a training rifle. 12 years old, bright eyes, a fire in her heart that no academy could teach. "I want to be like you, Mama," she had said. Elena had smiled. "Then you better be better than me." Now Maria was out there somewhere, wounded maybe, fighting, maybe worse. And command was too slow to act, so Elena became what they didn't expect, what they didn't want. She became a ghost. By midnight, the convoy slowed at a checkpoint. Elena slipped out before anyone noticed, disappearing into the rocks. She moved swiftly through the darkness, using terrain she hadn't seen in a decade, but still remembered like an old song. She linked up with an old contact, Adil, a drone tech with eyes on the conflict zone. Years ago, she'd saved his sister during a cross-border op. Tonight, he repaid the debt. He showed her the drone footage, thermal scans, movement patterns, body heat. Red silhouettes, over 40 armed men, guarding the ruins of a shelled-out village. Traps at every entrance, sniper lines etched across rooftops, mortars, radio intercepts buzzing with Arabic commands. Then, one faint signal. A soldier's emergency beacon, U.S. frequency, still blinking. Elena leaned closer. "That's her." Adil looked at her. "That place is death." Elena checked her rifle, tightened her gloves. "Then I'll go wake it up." She moved alone, low and fast through rocky terrain. At 0300 hours, she reached the edge of the combat zone. Smoke rose from the craters. Dogs barked in the distance. Shadows shifted under the dim stars. She watched, waited, counted patterns, listened to the rhythm of the guards. 2 men per corner, 1 sniper tower, an opening every 6 minutes. She whispered a name under her breath. Maria. Then she moved. 30 minutes later, the perimeter was broken. 2 guards down. Quiet kills! No alarms. Elena was inside, and 43 armed insurgents had no idea that the soldier they dismissed as too old had just entered their kill zone. The first time Elena held a rifle, she was 17. Her hands shook, but her eyes didn't. Back then, women weren't expected to last in combat training, let alone command an elite unit. She didn't just last, she rewrote expectations. Kosovo, Fallujah, Kandahar. She had seen wars reshape landscapes, leaders, and even loyalties. But nothing in her long career came close to this. She wasn't here as a colonel now. She was a mother with a mission, and time was bleeding out. Elena moved between crumbled walls, her back pressed against jagged stone. Every corner she turned, she saw the past. Every click of her boots brought her closer to where Maria might be, or might have fallen. Her earpiece crackled faintly. Static. Then a whisper in English. A voice she knew. Bravo 7 to anyone listening. We're pinned in. 2 wounded. No comms. Ammo's low. It was Maria. The voice was tired but alive. And surrounded, Elena studied the layout Adil had sketched. The insurgents weren't just occupying the village. They'd turned it into a trap. Barricades disguised as rubble. Hidden firing lanes. Pressure plates buried under trash. It was military architecture with brutal precision. These weren't amateurs. They were ex-special forces now paid to kill without conscience. She kept low, moving past a broken wall where 2 enemy fighters sat smoking, rifles across their laps. She counted seconds, timed their glances, and slipped past like a shadow in wind. Her breathing never changed. Further ahead, she found the first sign of American presence. Spent shell casings, marked boots in the dirt, and a torn medical bag. Blood on the ground. Still fresh. She checked her watch. 03:24 hours. Maria's unit couldn't hold out much longer. Elena reached a rooftop overlooking the village square. From there, she spotted movement. 4 insurgents dragging a wounded soldier across open ground. The American's uniform was torn. One leg bent wrong, head hanging. She steadied her rifle. Breathe in. Squeeze. The first shot dropped the man holding the soldier's arms. The second shattered the leg of the one near his head. Chaos erupted. Shouts in Arabic. Muzzle flashes. But Elena was gone before they could return fire. She descended into the alley, weaving through doorways, slipping behind burnt-out cars. Her route was planned like a map inside her bones. Years of muscle memory guided her faster than fear could follow. She reached the basement of a collapsed schoolhouse. It was quiet. Too quiet. Then, movement. A click. She froze. Tripwire. 2 inches from her boot. She knelt slowly, cut it with a wire tool, and moved forward. Then she saw them. 3 American soldiers huddled in a corner. Rifles up, eyes wide. U.S. forces, one whispered, weapon trembling. Identify. She stepped into the faint light. Colonel Vasquez, she said calmly. I'm here for my daughter. The soldiers lowered their weapons. One pointed to a back room. She's in there. Took shrapnel. Been holding us together since sunset. Elena walked in and stopped. Maria lay against the wall, her shoulder wrapped in a blood-soaked bandage. Dirt and sweat streaked her face. Her rifle rested in her lap, hands still ready, her eyes widened. Mom? Elena didn't speak. She knelt, checked the wound, tore off a strip of cloth, and rewrapped it tightly. You're not even supposed to be here, Maria whispered. Elena looked at her. Neither were you. Outside, gunfire erupted again. The enemy was regrouping. They were coming. Maria sat up. We don't have a way out. Elena reached into her bag, pulled out a hand-drawn map, marked with escape routes, guard rotations, and hidden doors. I do. Together, they briefed the remaining soldiers. There were 5 left. 2 barely able to walk. Ammo low. Spirits worse. But Elena spoke, not like a mother, not like a retired officer, like a warfighter with fire in her lungs. We move east, through the tunnels below the mosque. We plant charges at the northern gate. Draw them in, then disappear. One of the younger soldiers looked at her, doubtful. Ma'am, who the hell are you? Elena stared at him, expression hard. I'm the reason you'll see sunrise. And with that, The plan was in motion. Elena and Maria took rear guard. The wounded were carried. The charges were set. Every step timed, every breath calculated. They moved through the ruins like ghosts, unseen, unheard, until a flare lit the sky red. They'd been spotted. Gunfire erupted. Bullets tore through stone. One soldier fell, hit in the leg. Elena dragged him behind cover, fired 3 rounds, dropped 2 hostiles. Maria was hit again, grazed across the ribs. Still moving, they reached the final alley, just meters from the extraction point. Then the enemy closed in. 9 of them, armored, tactical, trained. The young soldiers panicked. One shouted, "We're done!" Elena stepped forward, pulled a flashbang from her vest, and looked at Maria. "You take them out." "I'll buy you time." Maria grabbed her arm. "No, we go together." But Elena was already moving. One flash. One push forward. 9 enemies fired at once, and she disappeared into smoke. The smoke swallowed her whole. Muzzle flashes lit the alley in short bursts. Shouts echoed off the walls. But Elena was no longer where they aimed. She'd moved left, shoulder to stone, eyes locked, counting footsteps by sound. 3 on the right, 2 flanking left. The others holding back, watching for movement. They didn't know she'd mapped this alley hours earlier. She slid behind a burnt-out refrigerator, raised her M4, and exhaled slow. Her first shot hit the lead flanker square in the neck. The second ricocheted off the wall and clipped another in the thigh. Screams, panic. They fired wildly into the smoke, but Elena was already gone. She vaulted over debris, slid through a half-broken window, and emerged behind a pile of crates near the opposite wall. One insurgent was standing there yelling orders into a radio. She didn't hesitate. 1 shot to the temple. He dropped without a sound. By now, Maria and the rest were clearing the last stretch toward the safe zone. A drainage tunnel just behind a crumbling wall east of the village. Elena's distraction had bought them the precious seconds they needed, but the enemy was regrouping. 2 more spotted her. Fired fast. She ducked, rolled, dropped one with a chest shot, then pivoted and hit the other in the gut. 5 down. 4 to go. Then she heard the whistle of something too familiar. RPG incoming. She dove backward just as the blast tore through the crates. The shockwave slammed her into the wall, ears ringing. Vision shaking, her rifle clattered to the ground. She blinked hard. Blood dripped from a cut above her eye. Her hands trembled, but she forced herself up. She wasn't done. Footsteps pounded toward her. 1 enemy jumped over rubble, rifle raised. Too close for a shot. She grabbed a broken metal pipe and swung hard, caught him in the knee. He screamed, fell. She took his sidearm and fired 2 rounds into his chest. 3 left. Elena limped back into the alley, her breath shallow, ribs aching. She leaned against a wall, hiding behind a shattered doorway. She needed to pull the last few away from the others, create a decoy. She pulled a flare from her pouch, cracked it, and tossed it into the center of the alley. Its red glow lit up the ruins like firelight. Then she ran. 3 hostiles chased the light, thinking it was the retreating squad. They turned the corner, rifles up, only to find silence. Then a grenade rolled out from behind a rusted barrel. Boom, 2 were thrown back. 1 screamed, crawling. The last tried to flee but found Elena waiting, calm, deliberate. Eyes cold, she fired once. 43. Her rifle clicked empty. Behind her, Maria appeared, helping the last of the soldiers through the tunnel entrance. Elena turned to her. Chest heaving, "All clear," she said. Maria stared at her mother, covered in soot, bloodied, limping, but standing tall. "I thought I lost you." Elena gave a small nod. "Not yet." Together, they helped the last wounded soldier down into the drainage tunnel. The passage was narrow, dark, but safe. Reinforced decades ago by locals, it had become an escape route used by resistance fighters in earlier wars. As they crawled through, water sloshed around their boots. Rats scattered ahead of them. The tunnel smelled of mold and rusted iron. Maria looked over at her. "How did you know where to find us?" "I didn't," Elena replied. "I just kept going until I did. It wasn't just strategy. It was something deeper. A pull only a mother could feel." The tunnel eventually opened into an abandoned irrigation trench just outside the village perimeter. A medic team was already inbound, alerted by a dill through encrypted channels. They'd be there in minutes. As the unit gathered in the shadows, Elena leaned against a stone pillar, eyes scanning the horizon. Maria stood beside her, watching the sky begin to lighten. "You broke every rule," she said quietly. "I broke the ones that didn't matter. You were alone." Elena shook her head. "Not alone. Just first." The soldiers, young and shaken, looked at her differently now. She wasn't just Maria's mother. She was the reason they were alive. The medic truck arrived just as the first rays of dawn crept over the hills. Dust kicked up around them as stretchers were unloaded and IVs prepped. Elena stepped back, letting the team do their work. She didn't need praise. She didn't want a medal. She only wanted one thing, her daughter alive. As the last soldier was lifted into the truck, Maria turned and faced her. "They'll court-martial you for this. Let them try. You'll be dishonorably discharged. I've already served with honor. Nothing they say now can take that from me." Maria hesitated. Then, quietly, "Thank you." Elena looked at her the same way she had when Maria was just a child, holding a wooden rifle in their backyard. "You keep going," she said. "You lead. You finish what I started." The truck doors shut. As it rolled away, Elena stood in the dirt, rifle slung across her back, and watched until the dust settled. Alone again, but not empty. This time, she'd saved more than lives. She'd saved the only part of herself that mattered. It was just past sunrise when Elena found herself sitting on the edge of an old rock wall. Her boots caked in ash, her hands streaked with dried blood. The medic team had driven off 20 minutes ago, leaving behind nothing but tire tracks and silence. The kind of silence that only comes after a storm. Her mission was over, but she wasn't at peace. Behind her, the ruined village still smoked. Charred rooftops, spent shells, the acrid smell of explosives clinging to the air. It wasn't the battlefield that haunted her now. It was what came next. Because now, she had to go back. Not to the field. To command. To the people who said she was. Too old to fight, too slow, too fragile, the same people who were drinking coffee when her daughter's unit was, being hunted through alleyways. She stood up, her back sore, knees aching. She checked her rifle one last time, then slung it across her shoulder and started walking south. The nearest forward operating base was 28 kilometers away. No transport, no radio, just desert and silence. She walked alone for hours. Footprints behind her faded quickly in the wind. Insects buzzed in dry brush. A hawk circled overhead, watching the lone figure move like a ghost across the land. At 1300 hours, she reached the base perimeter. The guards raised their rifles, then froze when they recognized her. One of them dropped his gun. "Colonel Vasquez?" Elena gave a nod, her voice low. "Requesting re-entry." They didn't know what to do. She hadn't checked out. No mission record, no chain of command. And yet here she was, dust-covered, weapons slung, moving like she'd just stepped out of a war zone, which she had. They let her through. Inside the command tent, chaos had been unfolding for hours. Reports of the Bravo 7 rescue had reached the radios. Conflicting data, confused voices. No one knew who had led the extraction. Drone footage showed shadowed movement, but no names. Then Elena walked in. Silence fell. The same officers who told her to retire now stared at her like they were seeing a myth walk through the door. She stood tall, calm, measured, general. Holt stepped forward. Silver stars on his collar, frown on his face. "You weren't authorized," he said. "No," she replied. "You disobeyed direct orders." "I didn't receive any," she said. "No one gave them." He paused, unsure how to respond. Elena reached into her jacket, pulled out a small, scorched helmet camera, the kind every soldier wore on mission. "This belonged to Private Niles," she said. He didn't make it. But it recorded everything. She placed it on the table, then she turned to leave. That night, the footage played on every secure screen in the base. Elena infiltrating enemy lines, her voice giving calm, clear instructions under fire, enemy fighters falling one by one. The final stand, the escape tunnel, and at the center of it all, a woman moving like time had never touched her. No backup. No hesitation. Just precision in fire. By morning, command changed its tone. The official report read, "Unauthorized but tactically sound solo rescue operation. 43 hostiles neutralized. Entire unit recovered alive. 0 U.S. fatalities." They wanted to decorate her quietly, a medal without ceremony, a commendation without headlines. But word had already spread. The soldiers she rescued, young, bruised and loyal, had begun to speak, first to medics, then to other units, then to home. And within days, Elena Vasquez became more than just a name on a log. She became the legend the military had tried to file away. Retired soldiers started writing in. Old comrades from Kosovo, medics from Fallujah, commanders from Kandahar, they all said the same thing. She was never too old. She was always the one. They called when things were impossible. She hadn't changed, the Yi system had forgotten her worth. 1 week later, she was summoned to D.C. Pentagon Hall, wood floors, flags hanging overhead. Rows of uniforms lined the room. Maria stood in front, dressed in her service blues, arm in a sling, face full of quiet pride. The Secretary of Defense stepped up. "Elena Vasquez," he said, "you defied protocol, crossed into hostile territory, and conducted one of the most efficient extractions of the last decade. Elena didn't blink. You saved 8 lives." He paused, "and you reminded us what we forgot." She was handed the Distinguished Service Cross. It wasn't the medal that mattered to her. It was the moment she turned, saw Maria standing tall beside her, and realized that everything she had fought for, every mile, every bullet, every scar, was for this, for the next generation, for the ones still fighting, for the soldiers who still believe that courage doesn't age. That night, as she stepped out into the cool Washington air, Elena looked up at the stars. She wasn't done, not yet. The applause echoed through the hall, a steady rhythm of respect and awe. Elena stood rigid, the medal heavy against her chest, but the weight she felt was nothing compared to the burden she'd carried for years. Faces blurred in the crowd, soldiers, officers, politicians, but her eyes found only one person, Maria. Her daughter's eyes were shining. A mix of relief, pride, and something unspoken. The bond forged in smoke and bullets had never been stronger. After the ceremony, the crowd thinned. Elena and Maria stepped outside into the crisp evening air. The city lights flickered against the fading sunset. For a moment, the world slowed down. "Mom," Maria said softly, "you didn't have to come for me." Elena looked at her, tired but fierce. "I had to." "You were out there alone. That's not how I raised you." Maria smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes. "I wanted to make you proud." "You already do," Elena whispered. But this was bigger than pride. It was survival. Family. They stood there, shoulder to shoulder. 2 warriors bound not just by blood, but by fire. Later, in a quiet room filled with framed photos of battles past, Elena sat across from General Holt. The man who had once questioned her place now looked at her with a new respect. "Colonel," he said carefully, "your actions have sparked a debate about age, experience, and the place of women in combat." Elena nodded. "Experience isn't measured in years, General. It's measured in resolve," he sighed. "We're reviewing policies. Your story is pushing change." Elena leaned forward. "Don't just change policies, change minds. That's harder." Outside, the world kept spinning, but inside those walls, a shift was happening. Elena knew she'd opened a door for others, women who'd been told they were too old, too fragile, or not enough. But the real fight was just beginning. Back at the barracks, Maria healed. The physical wounds would mend, but the mental scars ran deep. She struggled with nightmares, visions of the firefight, the faces of enemies, the fear of losing everything. Elena sat with her night after night. Not as a colonel, not as a soldier, but as a mother. Tell me what you see, Elena said one evening. Maria closed her eyes. The flashbang. The smoke. I thought I was going to die. Elena reached for her hand. You didn't, and you're stronger because of it. Sometimes I wonder if I'm ready, Maria admitted. For what comes next? Elena smiled gently. You're more ready than you think. Fear is part of it, but courage is choosing to move forward anyway. Their bond grew deeper, not just by shared blood, but shared sacrifice. Meanwhile, whispers of Elena's feat spread through the ranks. Younger soldiers, inspired by her determination, started pushing for extended combat roles for women beyond traditional age limits. Veterans wrote letters, sharing their own battles with ageism. In training yards across the country, instructors referenced Elena's mission. If Colonel Vasquez can do it, so can you, they told recruits. But Elena didn't want to be a symbol. She wanted to be a mentor, a guide, someone who could teach the next generation to fight smarter, to lead harder, and to never let anyone tell them when to stop. She requested a new assignment, training special operations units in urban warfare, using her hard-earned knowledge. Her first day in the classroom was filled with skepticism. Some young officers doubted her. Some dismissed her as a relic. Then she spoke. Her voice was steady. Her stories raw but purposeful. She talked about the smells of war, the dust, the smoke, the fear. She described the sounds, distant gunfire, whispered orders, the silence after chaos. She taught them tactics learned not from books, but from nights spent crawling through enemy territory, carrying wounded soldiers on her back. Slowly, respect grew. Questions followed. Soldiers leaned in, eager to learn from someone who had lived it. One young lieutenant asked, "Colonel, what kept you going when it seemed hopeless?" Elena paused. "Hope. For my daughter. For my unit. For the chance that we all come home." Outside the training center, a new world was forming. Women once sidelined were now standing at the front lines. Age limits were being reconsidered. The military was changing, not just policies, but culture. Elena watched from the sidelines, proud but restless. There was still more to do. Late one night, she received a message, an encrypted call from Adil, the drone tech who had helped her. "We've picked up chatter," he said. "New threats emerging in the region. They've learned from the last attack." Elena's eyes narrowed. "Then we prepare." Maria stood beside her, healed and stronger, ready to fight alongside her mother. 2 generations. 2 warriors. One unbreakable bond. The mission wasn't over. It was only beginning. The warning came just before midnight. A low hum of activity at the command center, screens flickering with satellite images and intercepted communications. Elena sat with her team, her eyes sharp, scanning data feeds that told stories words could not. Adil leaned over, pointing at a cluster of red blips moving fast across the border. New insurgent cells, smarter, more organized. They've adapted since last time. Elena's jaw tightened. She could feel the familiar burn in her lungs, the mix of adrenaline and resolve. "They're planning something big," she said. "We need eyes on the ground." Her voice echoed in the room, calm but commanding. Younger officers exchanged looks, unsure how to respond to the woman who had once been dismissed as too old, but was now their best asset. "We'll deploy recon units tonight," she ordered. No mistakes. No surprises. Outside, the night was thick with tension. Elena's unit moved quietly through the rugged terrain. Every shadow could hide an enemy. Every whisper might be a trap. Her daughter, Maria, led one of the reconnaissance teams. The pain from her previous injuries had faded, replaced with a hardened focus that only battle can forge. Elena watched the screens as thermal images showed movement near a deserted village, an old war scar like so many others. Suddenly, a flare burst overhead, painting the valley red. Gunfire shattered the silence. Maria's voice crackled over the comms, steady but urgent. "We've been compromised. Multiple hostiles approaching fast." Elena's fingers flew over the keyboard, coordinating drone support, guiding extraction points. Her voice cut through the chaos. "Hold your position." Engage only if necessary. Extraction in 5. Minutes stretched like hours. Gunshots echoed, distant cries, the crackle of radios filled with static. Then silence. Elena's heart dropped. "Maria, respond," she called. A pause. Then a whisper. "We're falling back, injured, need support." Without hesitation, Elena grabbed her gear. She wasn't waiting for orders anymore. She was going in. Navigating treacherous ridges and thick brush, she moved alone, a shadow moving against the moonlight. Every step reminded her of years past, the cold nights in Kosovo, the dust storms of Fallujah. She found Maria crouched behind a shattered wall, blood staining her uniform but eyes fierce. "Mom," Maria said, breathing heavy. "We were ambushed," Elena nodded. "Let's get you out." Together, they moved through the labyrinth of ruins. Elena led the wounded, firing with precision when enemy fighters closed in. Her years of experience turned chaos into calculated strikes. At one point, a bullet grazed Elena's arm, pain flaring but ignored. They reached a narrow canyon where an extraction team waited, but the enemy was closing in. With no time to lose, Elena ordered her daughter and the others to the chopper. "Go, I'll cover you." Maria hesitated. "No, we go together." Elena looked at her, seeing not the child she once raised, but the soldier she had trained. "Stay alive," she said. The chopper lifted off as Elena provided suppressive fire. Every shot deliberate, every breath measured. When the last soldier was safe, Elena slipped into the shadows, disappearing into the rocky landscape. Hours later, she returned to base, exhausted but alive. The mission had been a success, but at a cost. In the debrief, the room was heavy with tension. "You risked everything going in alone," General Holt said quietly. Elena met his gaze. "I didn't risk. I calculated." He nodded slowly. "Your daughter owes you her life." Elena's face softened. "And I owe her mine." But the fight wasn't over. News reports began to surface. Insurgent attacks growing bolder, networks expanding. The battlefield was shifting. Elena and Maria trained harder, pushing their limits. Their bond, forged in fire, became their greatest strength. At night, they shared stories, not just of war, but of hope. Of dreams for a future where age and gender didn't define a soldier's worth. Elena looked at her daughter and saw the same fire she had once carried. A fire that refused to die. The military world was changing. And with every battle, every sacrifice, Elena Vasquez and her daughter were leading the charge. The early morning sun cast long shadows over the desert, painting the barren landscape in hues of gold and amber. Elena stood at the edge of the forward operating base, watching as helicopters rotated their blades against the pale sky. Her mind was heavy, but her stance was unwavering, ready for what was coming. They had received intelligence that the insurgents were planning a coordinated attack on a nearby village where civilians still clung to fragile hope. Elena's mission was clear: prevent bloodshed, secure the area, and protect the innocent. The briefing room buzzed with tension as officers reviewed maps and satellite images. Elena studied every detail: the winding dirt roads, clusters of buildings, potential ambush points. Years of experience sharpened her eyes. Every detail mattered. "Time is against us," she told the team. "We move fast, stay sharp, and trust no one." Maria, still recovering but eager, checked her gear beside her mother. "We're ready." Elena glanced at her daughter, admiration mixing with concern. They had been through so much together, but this mission demanded everything they had left. The convoy rolled out under a cloudless sky, dust billowing behind heavy armored vehicles. Elena rode at the front, scanning the horizon. They passed dry riverbeds, rocky outcrops, and abandoned farms, silent witnesses to decades of conflict. As they neared the village, Elena's gut tightened. Something was wrong. The roads were empty. No signs of life. Then a sudden explosion shattered the calm. A roadside bomb ripped through the lead vehicle, sending metal and flames into the air. Chaos erupted. Elena dropped low, yelling commands. "Return fire! Move back! Protect the convoy!" The insurgents struck fast, emerging from hidden positions, firing with deadly precision. The squad responded with disciplined volleys. But the enemy's knowledge of the terrain gave them an edge. Amid the firefight, Elena spotted movement near a cluster of buildings, a group of villagers trapped. Caught in the crossfire, without hesitation, she sprinted toward them, bullets snapping around her. Her mind raced. There was no time for caution, only action. She reached the frightened group, women clutching children, men shielding the young. Their faces were etched with terror. "Follow me," Elena said firmly. "I'll get you out." The villagers hesitated but trusted the soldiers' determined eyes. Behind her, gunfire intensified. Enemy fighters flanked the compound, cutting off escape routes. Elena moved quickly, guiding the group toward a narrow passage between ruined walls. Her rifle covered their retreat, every shot calculated to suppress attackers without endangering the civilians. Suddenly, a child stumbled, crying out as dust filled his lungs. Elena dropped to her knees, lifting him gently. "We're almost there," she whispered. Maria appeared beside her, firing at a sniper perched on a rooftop. Together they formed a protective shield, their movements synchronized by years of shared battles. The extraction point was close, a small clearing where helicopters could land briefly. As the choppers touched down, Elena helped the villagers aboard, ensuring everyone was accounted for. Her heart pounded when she saw the last woman, an elderly grandmother clutching a faded photograph, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," the woman whispered. "You saved us all." Elena nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. This was why she fought. The faces behind the conflict, the lives at stake. As the helicopters lifted off, Elena and Maria covered their retreat, exchanging fire with insurgents determined to stop them. A sudden explosion rocked the ground beneath Elena. She fell, pain shooting through her leg. Gritting her teeth, she forced herself up. "Keep moving!" she shouted. Maria dragged her to cover, refusing to leave her side. The firefight raged on, but the enemy began to retreat, outmatched by coordinated fire and relentless resolve. Back at the base, medics rushed to Elena's side, working quickly to stabilize her wound. The pain was sharp, but manageable. She knew she'd be back on her feet soon enough. In the quiet that followed, Elena sat with Maria, exhaustion weighing on them both. "You were amazing out there," Maria said softly. Elena smiled, though fatigue tugged at her features. "So were you. You never stopped fighting." Maria looked away, vulnerability flickering in her eyes. "Sometimes I wonder if we'll ever have peace." Elena reached out, squeezing her daughter's hand. "Peace is what we fight for, but the fight never truly ends." Their bond was unbreakable, a testament to survival, love, and sacrifice. News of the mission spread quickly. Command praised Elena's leadership and bravery. The villagers were evacuated safely, their lives spared. But beyond medals and reports, Elena knew the true victory was in the smiles of those she saved. That night, as the base settled into uneasy calm, Elena stared at the stars above, silent witnesses to endless wars and endless hope. She wasn't just fighting for the present. She was fighting for a future, where daughters like Maria could grow up without fear. And no matter the cost, she would keep fighting. Elena sat quietly in the dimly lit room, the hum of the base fading into the background. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly, stars piercing the night like silent sentinels. Her body ached, every scar a reminder of battles fought and won, but her mind was sharp, focused on what lay ahead. The war had changed. The enemy adapted, shifting tactics, blending into shadows. But so had she. Experience was her greatest weapon now, tempered by the fire of countless missions and the unbreakable bond with her daughter, Maria. The medal on her nightstand gleamed softly, a symbol of recognition, yes, but also a promise. A promise to keep fighting, to never let age define her limits. Her thoughts drifted back to the day she saved Maria's unit. The adrenaline rush, the moments when life and death hung in the balance. She remembered the fear, the determination, the unyielding will to protect the next generation. That mission had shattered expectations. It forced the military to reconsider long-held beliefs about age and capability, especially for women in combat roles. Elena became a beacon for those sidelined, a living testament that courage and skill only sharpen with time, but medals and accolades couldn't erase the cost. Nights filled with haunting memories, the faces of fallen comrades, and the weight of sacrifices made. The personal price of war was heavy, yet Elena never faltered. She looked across the room to where Maria rested, her breathing steady after days of recovery. The young soldier's resilience amazed her, a reflection of the strength passed down from mother to daughter. Elena rose slowly, her body protesting, and moved to Maria's bedside. "You're going to be okay," she whispered. Maria's eyes fluttered open, meeting her mother's gaze with a mix of exhaustion and pride. "We make a good team," Maria said softly. Elena smiled, a rare softness breaking through the battle-hardened exterior. "Yes, we do." Morning came, and with it new orders. The insurgents had regrouped, launching attacks in nearby regions. Elena's expertise was requested to strategize the next phase of operations. She gathered her team, laying out plans with precision and clarity. Every detail mattered, from supply routes to communication lines, from cover fire to evacuation protocols. Her voice commanded respect. The skepticism of her age faded under the weight of her knowledge. "Young or old, soldier or commander, we all have a role," she said firmly, "and mine is to ensure we come back alive." Days blurred into nights as the operation unfolded. Elena's leadership guided the troops through ambushes and shifting terrain. She coordinated air support, negotiated with local leaders, and tended to the wounded. Her presence was a steady force amidst chaos. During a rare moment of calm, she and Maria shared a quiet conversation by the campfire. "I've learned so much from you," Maria confessed. "Not just about fighting, but about strength." Elena looked into the flickering flames, memories flooding back. Strength isn't just about muscle or weapons. It's about heart. "The courage to keep going when everything tells you to stop," Maria nodded. "I want to carry that forward." "And you will," Elena replied, "because you already do." The mission reached its climax when intelligence pinpointed a high-value target, coordinating attacks from a fortified compound. Elena volunteered to lead the assault team, a decision met with mixed emotions from her peers, but she knew the risks. She knew what was at stake. Under the cover of darkness, Elena's unit moved silently through rugged hills, the moon casting long shadows. Every step was deliberate, every breath controlled. The assault was swift and brutal. Elena's tactics, honed over decades, shattered enemy defenses. Her voice echoed commands, steady and clear, guiding her soldiers through the fog of battle. Amidst gunfire and explosions, she found herself face to face with the enemy commander. Time seemed to freeze. Without hesitation, Elena took the shot. A single, precise bullet ended the threat. Victory was theirs. As dawn broke, Elena surveyed the battlefield, scarred but silent. The cost was high, but so was the price of freedom. Back at base, the military hierarchy could no longer deny her impact. Elena was promoted not just for bravery, but for redefining what it meant to serve. Yet, the greatest reward was watching Maria step into her own legacy, leading missions with the same fierce determination. Together, they symbolized the past and future, a bridge between generations. Elena's story traveled beyond military walls, inspiring countless women and men who believed in second chances and endless possibilities. She proved that age was never a barrier. Courage was timeless. As the sun set over the desert once more, Elena stood beside Maria, ready for whatever the future held, because warriors aren't defined by years, they're defined by heart, and hers beat strong.